Assalamu alaikum students. We are going to discuss the topic of feedback mechanism. Well, before starting the topic, I would like to share the saying of Hazrat Ali. He said, two things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. Well, here Hazrat Ali has actually, Islam has actually said about two extremes. Well, these are the two extremes. Number one, to have nothing in hand, and number two, to have everything in hand. Well, in these two extremes, well, in both the extremes, as well as in the middle one, God is testing the moments. You are tested when you have nothing in terms of patience, and you are tested in terms of attitude if you have everything. So students, whenever in your life you feel that you are in the lowest strata and the lowest level of your life, then be patient. Be patient. And on the other hand, if you are in such a position that you have everything, every material gain, every blessing of God, then be careful. Your attitude is being tested. So coming to the point, to the article actually, well, the topic is feedback mechanism. Well, students, as you know, and you have read in a previous article that in endocrine glands are basically certainly glands that secrete hormones, yes, and those hormones are actually responsible for regulating different functions of the body. Well, the thing is, these hormones are never always secreted at a constant rate. Well, it depends actually upon the requirement of the body, human body. If the requirement of the human body is, the need of the human body is more, then certainly hormones are to be secreted more. And on the other hand, if the requirement or the need of the human body is less, then certainly the secretion of the hormones will be reduced. Well, this function, as well as other functions of the body, basically, they are actually regulated by a mechanism that is called feedback mechanism. Well, and the feedback mechanism, basically, it means the regulation of a process by the output of the same process. Well, it's this thing actually is a bit you can say a bit tricky for you student. You just have to open your mind and have an in-depth view of two scenarios, two things. Well, number one is process, and number two is the output of that process. Well, this actually, you have to take in mind the relationship between a process and the output of that process. These are connected. Well, this connection either forward or either backward is basically is creating a loop, a mechanism that actually gives the feedback, and eventually processes are handled, and they are regulated according to the need. Well, there are two types of feedback mechanism. Number one is a negative feedback mechanism, and the second one is positive feedback mechanism. Well, first of all, now negative feedback mechanism. Well, student, there is a process that results an output. Well, a process that is resulting an output, and suppose the output of the process decrease and inhibit the function of the process, then this is called negative feedback mechanism. Well, it certainly it works for the objective of creating the normal value, normal condition, or homeostasis in the body, and regulate and normalize the body. The basic objective of negative feedback mechanism certainly is this. But the point to be noted, an output that is basically produced by the process when starts decreasing or inhibiting the process itself, that is your negative feedback mechanism. Well, classical example of this is your blood glucose level. If it is high, well, what happens when it is high? Well, actually your pancreas secretes insulin. Well, this insulin actually decreases the blood glucose concentration. And how it is done? Actually, insulin triggers the liver basically, and it starts storing the glucose in the form of glycogen, and eventually your concentration of blood glucose is decreased. Well, what happens when the concentration of the glucose is decreased and declined to a normal set of point, then what happens? This inhibits and prevent and reduce the secretion of insulin. You got that point? Well, insulin was the process. This insulin was the process triggered by. Well, student, this is the whole scene, and in the second scenario here is about the condition in which your blood glucose level becomes low, or it drops. So when it is dropped, then what happens is your pancreas it secretes your glucagon, right? Well, this glucagon actually, it raises the blood glucose, and eventually in this case the blood concentration to a normal set point. Well, when it reaches to a normal set point, it start inhibiting the formation of glucagon itself. So here the formation of glucagon was the process, and the output was actually the raise of the blood glucose. So the blood glucose level or glucose level was raised, and this was the output of this process. But at a particular point of normality, this raised blood glucose actually then triggers and inhibits the process of production of glucagon. Well, output controls the process and secretion of insulin and glucagon, and this actually is also an example of negative feedback mechanism. Well, the example of a negative feedback mechanism can be understood from the whole scenario here. Well, if suppose we will follow the red lines, okay, and if suppose the blood sugar is high in your body, then it basically promotes and promotes the formation of insulin here in the pancreas. Well, this insulin that is produced, that it basically triggers the liver, and well, your to change the glucose and change the glucose into glycogen and store it into glycogen. So eventually what happens is actually your blood sugar level is decreased. Well, when it is decreased, then what happens is the production of insulin itself is inhibited. That is negative feedback mechanism. On the other hand, in low blood sugar, well, this pancreas release an hormone that is called glucagon. Well, glucagon actually, again, it triggers the liver to break the glucose and convert the glycogen into, to break the glycogen into and convert it into glucose, and eventually raising the blood sugar level. But to a certain normal point, this raised blood sugar level then will inhibit the formation of your glucagon. So this is actually negative feedback mechanism. Well, another representation, certainly if you are eating more sugar content, your blood sugar level will increase, high blood glucose level will be detected, and insulin is secreted. Well, this insulin is then transmitted to the pancreas, and where actually your liver, your liver actually will start storing and converting glucose into glycogen. And when there is a normal state attained from the high blood sugar or to a normal, then it basically inhibits. It inhibits the formation of insulin, and that is how negative feedback occurs. Well, in the positive feedback mechanism, as its name show, it results from a process increase the rate of process. Well, the change the change resulting from the process that we called it as output, it actually itself increased the rate of process. So it is the somewhat, well, in the case of negative, it basically inhibits at a particular point, but in positive feedback, it actually triggers and increases the rate of process. Well, the classical example is when in the suckling action of an infant that stimulates the production of hormones in the mother. Well, it works like, you know, the more suckling is done by the infant, and from the mammary glands, actually the more hormones are released, that in turn leads to more milk production. Well, this is the classical example of positive feedback mechanism. Another representation of this positive. Suppose there is a blood vessel, and this blood vessel is tear. Well, you can see there is a tear in the blood vessel. Then blood is just coming out, and then what happens? Then, my dear students, your positive feedback actually starts. And how it starts? Actually, your platelets actually starts adhering the site, and they start adhering the sites, and they release a chemical as well. Well, when this chemical is also released in the platelets, well, what happens? This chemical again attract more platelets. Well, this is actually, well, the formation of the platelets as the adherence of the platelets as triggered by the tear. Well, this results in the formation of a chemical. Well, that chemical again increases the release, increases the presence of platelets, and it goes on like this. It goes more and more platelets are formed, more and more chemical, and more chemical will basically attract more and more platelets, and eventually this will help in actually the formation of a platelet plug, and basically help in the recovery of the blood vessel. So the classical example of positive feedback. That's all for now, and I hope you will be able to understand the concept. And your home task is only and only be connected with us in the Sanai portal, watch the videos thoroughly, and your curiosity, and this will help you building your concepts. So that's from now, and wishing and hoping and praying for your good health. Stay home, stay safe.